We spend our entire life chasing happiness. We think that once we'll get a car that we want, we'll be happy. Once we get a house, once we get a partner that we want, we'll be happy. Once we'll have the job opportunity, or visit Paris, or Greece, or have an amazing vacation, or find the right group of friends, then we'll be happy. But is it true? Is happiness something we find, or perhaps is it something that we create? This video will give you an answer to that and will help you to be happier. I mean, of course, if you're gonna implement the things that I'm gonna be talking about. So what is our default thinking about happiness? I want something, I get it, and then I'm happy. For a couple of minutes, for a couple of days, and that's all. And if I were to ask you right now, what would make you happy? What would make you happier? You'd give me an answer so fast, like you've been preparing your whole life for someone to ask you this question. And what was your answer? Money? Having more money, or materialistic thing like a car, a house, a phone, etc. Is it a job opportunity? Is it a romantic partner? Mostly it's one of these three things. And if someone were to ask me, like, what would make you happier? I think my answer also would be something from those three categories. Or even if not from those three categories, my answer would also exist. It doesn't mean that I'm making this video, I'm like, oh no, there is nothing that could make me happier. I'm satisfied, I'm content with my life, I don't want anything else. I'm just, accepting things and as they go. I'm so relaxed, so content. No, I can even give you like 10 things that would make me happier. Because we as humans, we treat happiness as a reward. We treat happiness as, oh, I'll achieve this and then I'll be happy. I'll get this and then I'll be happy. It's something that we achieve, it's something that we strive for. And actually it has a name. Daniel Gilbert called this natural happiness. And if there's one kind of happiness, there's inevitably other kind of happiness. And that other kind of happiness is synthetic happiness. That one I think is not so common as natural kind of happiness, because wanting something, then getting it, that's natural happiness. And being happy, that's natural happiness. That is a perfect example of natural happiness. Synthetic happiness doesn't necessarily mean that it's like fake happiness, even though it's like general consensus. Synthetic happiness means happiness that your mind creates when your life doesn't go according to plan. And in the core of it is psychological immune system, about which we'll talk later. So here's an example of synthetic happiness at work. There was a study conducted at Harvard University, and they made a photography course for students, where students for all the semester, or I don't really remember what the duration was, they had to take pictures. They had to walk around, take pictures. It was a photography course. And by the end of the course, they said that they have to narrow down to two pictures they love the most. And they did. They came and they're like, okay, so we could give you one picture from those two, and the other we have to take because we have to send it to UK, to our database. And there were two groups. So in one group, they came in with those, two pictures, and they're like, okay, you have to choose between one or second which one you want to take, because we will send it to UK like right away. You have to choose as quickly as you can. We cannot, you cannot change your mind because we have to send it to our database. They just chose a picture. They didn't have any way to return it back. They just went home and they had no possibility to have the other picture. The second group, they came in with these two photos, and the researcher's like, hey, by the end of the week, we'll have to send this picture to our database in UK. It would be great, like you have an option between these two photos, but if at any point by this week you will change your mind, you can just let us know. We even can bring this photograph to you and take that one from you, so no worries, take your time, you can change your mind, it's okay. But by the end of the week, who do you think was happier with the choice? Imagine you were walking around and spent the whole semester taking photos, and then you had to narrow down your two most beautiful photos, and then you could only save one. You can only have one photo, and you were forced in seconds or minutes to choose one, and you cannot have the other one back. Or you could for a week think okay, maybe this one, I like how it looks, I like the people in the shot, the trees as well, the wind was perfect that day. Who do you think was happier? Our general consensus and our, I don't even know how to call it, our instinct is to say that of course the happier was the person who had the choice, who had the freedom, who had more freedom. But the thing is, it's not true. The person who was, you could say, forced, just like in one day, in a couple of minutes, to choose the photo, and they couldn't return it back and they couldn't get the second photo, they were much more happier with the choice than a person who could choose between two photos. Because the next week, because of this option, they spend their time thinking like, oh, well, maybe I like that one better because of the wind and of the people, but this one as well, also because like my first picture that I took, and it like reminds me of this course, but that one shows like more professional side of it, and what should I do? And I should like do something with this, but maybe I could return this, but I don't know. And because of the choice, and that is weird because we think the choices and the freedom of the choice makes us happier. That is not true. The freedom and the ability to choose is a friend. It's like best friend of natural happiness because it gives us this delicious taste of all these choices that we can have. But it's an enemy of synthetic happiness because psychological immune system works best when we are completely stuck. And let's take as an example, you go on a first date. You go on a first date with that person, they seem lovely, that's amazing. But somewhere, at one point, they picked their nose. Or did something else that like you consider an ick, because that's so trendy right now, icks. And you're like, ew, like that's horrendous. You're not going on a second date. Like, no. You also will tell your friends about like what a strange person you went out with. You know, how weird is that? But if you're married to someone and you see them pick their nose or do other things that give you an ick, you just say, well, it's just Robert. It's one of his little quirks, little annoying habits, but I love him. And what, would you argue that it's not true, that a person doesn't love someone because they have this annoying habit? No, they genuinely do love them. They don't have the options anymore. They're already married. That's psychological immune system at work. People do not know that about themselves, and that works so much to their disadvantage. Okay, so why should you care about all that I just had to say? Well, because it changes the way we look at our entire future. Our whole life, we are fed this idea that we're only happy when we get the things that we want, but Daniel Gilbert argues that we underestimate the ability of our brain to adapt to things. In the previous video about happiness, I talked about the very interesting phenomenon. We have to keep in mind that happiness doesn't change as much as we think, because each of us has a set point of happiness. It's heritable. For example, there was a study, or it's just like, not a study, but like a thing that was there. They took two identical twins and they were raised in different environments by different families with completely different situations, and their happiness level was the same. So if I were to tell you to imagine the worst possible scenario that could happen to you, and I would ask you, do you think it would change your happiness level? You would say yes, of course. And if I were to do vice versa and ask you, imagine the best thing could possibly happen to you, would that change your happiness level? And of course it would. You know, in our mind, it's not a tough call. It's like super obvious. That would change. But the thing is, you won't. One of the primary examples that were given in the lecture was the worst scenario, getting paralyzed, and the best scenario is, for example, winning a lottery. And as it turns out, your life doesn't change as much. So when these things happen, there a certain period of time of which your happiness level could increase or decrease, but then you get back to that set point, because that is how our brain works. That is psychological immune system. We adapt to things, to good things. You could be on vacation, you could have a lovely time, but then you will find a problem to think about and ponder about, even though you planned this vacation for months and you've been looking forward and you've saved for this vacation and you have amazing time. You're just like spending left and right and you dreamed about this, but then you also find problems and you find things that you don't like. This enjoyment that you have right now could last for a day or two, but then your mind adapts to it and it searches for something bad. And the same is like with everything. It's amazing that our mind adapts, but in the ways of like happy moments, when it adapts to happy moments and we just take people for granted or situations for granted or things for granted, is actually awful, but that's the way our minds work. Let me give you one of the most extraordinary examples of synthetic happiness. Moreese Bickham spent 37 years in prison for a crime he did not commit. 37 years. I think 14 years out of those 37, he spent in a solitary... I forgot the word. Like, alone. He didn't have any inmates. He lost his freedom, he lost decades of his life, and when he finally was released at 78 years, reporters asked him, like, how do you feel about what happened? You know, you've been wrongly accused for 37 years, and when people discovered DNA that tested and realized that it's not your fault, and you've been out, and how do you feel about all this? About 37 years spent in prison for things you did not do. And his words were, and I quote, "I don't have 1 minute's regret. It was glorious experience." What? And, well, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that being wrongfully accused is a good thing, injustice is a good thing, or anything like this. I'm not even sure how you could come to this conclusion in what I'm talking about, but that doesn't matter. I'm not talking about these things. I'm talking about our minds' fascinating and extraordinary ability to adapt. And that doesn't mean that everyone will have the same response. It means that everyone has a brain that is capable of doing the same thing. The man spent almost 4 decades in a prison, and he found silver lining. I don't know what. I have no idea what was the silver lining, but he found it. It is extraordinary what our minds can do. Our minds can send us in a full spiral of anxiety over things that have not happened, and our minds can make us feel happy when we don't even get the things that we want. You just have to be aware of that. If there is something that you do not get, if there is something that you cannot reach and you feel like, you know, you'll never reach it, you're not happy, you didn't get that job opportunity, that will pass. You will not feel that way always. And there's so much more I can talk about the choices and decision and freedom and how all these things kind of work together and how it also strains our happiness, but I think that would be in a different video with a different title, not necessarily on this topic, but I will cover that topic anyway. And I'll leave off with this amazing quote. The greatest source of our anxiety isn't that life will go differently than we planned. It's that we don't realize how remarkably equipped our minds are to handle it. That's an amazing phrase and leaves you something to think about. And if you like this video and you like to ponder and read and reflect about some interesting things, and if you like this video and you're curious about psychology, philosophy, books, and a lot of other myriads of ideas, you will enjoy my completely free newsletter. I write there about the things that didn't make it into the video, or about the reflections I have by myself, or maybe about the books that I read. And honestly, very interesting place. Maybe because they come from my head and I consider my head a very interesting place, but feel free to subscribe to my newsletter. And well, if you enjoyed this video, subscribe, like, I don't know, share maybe with someone who will enjoy it as well. And I hope you have an amazing day, and I'll see you next time. Bye. Thank you for watching.